Right. And there we go.
3, 2, 1. Go.
And welcome to the Range Trails Guide and Country Show Medical Hour with Dr. Curtis Clark. And we want to thank all of our listeners out there in Facebook land and on YouTube.
Hello, everybody.
We got the man here. That's right. I want to go ahead and start out by putting out our phone number. Miss Pat put it out on the screen for us. It's 706-940-0541. That's 706-940-0541. And what this will give you the opportunity to do will be to come back and call in. And if you have a question for Dr. Clark. And now, again, and I always want to point this out to everybody. Yep, there we are. As I always want to point this out is that when you call in that number, 706-940-0541, you're going to talk to Miss Pat. You're not going to be on the air, whether it be on whatever media that we're on right now. So you don't have to worry about that. She will ask you, do you want to go on the air and talk live with Dr. Clark? If you do, we'll put you on the air live with Dr. Clark. If you don't, you can just ask Miss Pat the question, and Miss Pat will refer it over to Dr. Clark or me or whoever refer to me on that, but that you might have. So what I want to do is just encourage people to call in. I mean, this is a medical doctor. It's a practicing doctor right now here in Columbus, and how often do you get that chance to have that opportunity? So I was just telling, let's open up, Doc. I was just telling that I'm curious how many people out there. Pat and I had a little bout this week with viruses, and viruses are weird, especially when you get my age. I'll be 56 on next birthday, and you start worrying a little bit about when things and stuff, and you just feel rotten. I had a bad headache, but I want to tell you something. Dr. Clark has been a big advocate of telling us that we take too many antibiotics. In years past, I would have run right to Dr. Sun and said, "Doc, give me antibiotic," and I did not because I did not have a fever, and but I just had a bad headache and I felt lousy, muscles hurt and everything like that. And then it went 3 or 4 days, and I'm about 95% now. But I took Tylenol.
Have you been? Were you swimming?
No.
Okay. You did mention to me, is this going around? Now, we'll say viruses can be picked up from swimming pools and fresh water too, especially when there's a lot of other bathers there. And of course, your other nasal secretions and oral secretions are in the pool, and that's a good way to get exposed to a respiratory virus in the summer as well.
I'll tell you how I think I got it, and I gave it to Miss Pat. I'm sorry, Miss Pat. Is that I saw somebody about 2 days before it started, that when I walked in there, I said, "How you doing?" They said, "Oh, I'm not feeling good. I've got a headache." And this was a very close friend of mine. I gave him a big hug when I left and stuff like that, and shook hands, and we talked like that. And I probably did, as you all said we did, I probably did this, and I probably infected myself.
That's exactly how it happens.
That's exactly. And I don't think people out there realize, if we could go back and change some things in society. I talked about it before. About I've actually thought about because it's not a fatal thing for me. But I thought wow, just like we were talking about Japan, people should walk around during these cold food season stuff and wear a mask on that have it.
Every time I go to a hospital or a doctor's office, and I know that there's a lot of sick people there, I always ask for a mask, and I tell people I'm not wearing this mask because I'm contagious. I just don't want to pick up anything.
But Ms. Pat, very, very, very important that what I just said was that ironically, that a lot of people in the Orient, especially Japan, Korea, those areas like that, they actually, it is considered courteous if you have a potential sickness, a bad cold, a virus, to wear it, so that you do not give it to other people.
But it's kind of recommended in hospital workers as well that we do that, but it's one of those things that doesn't take on.
And and I can tell you that because I wanted to know and I looked into it, that in Japan, in the Orient, where you see people that and they do not shake hands, they bow. That's where that came from. They're very hygienic people, and they figured out very quickly that what is it? I mean, Doc, you'll verify this. I think because people I've said it, they go like, "Nah, it's impossible." I'll look it up here in a second. I think the average person touches their face like 200 times
a day.
a day
Yeah.
or something
Yeah,
like
like
that.
20 times a minute.
20
Yeah,
times
just
a minute,
crazy.
just for a second, like, and
amount.
that's just enough. And then I've
Yes.
also been told that, like what we're seeing on here, right here, that table services at restaurants, work, that this is one of the number. You put your hands on there, you get on there, like, and then it just goes right into your system, right?
That's right.
I guess it doesn't even go in there quick,
So-
touch your eyes.
So, yeah, I mean, you don't want to be a germaphobe, but just like even Miss Pat just said, what you do is, or like, and the story you just gave, which is very common, you don't want to be a germaphobe, but it would be good if you had a little spray or a hand gel in your car. And it's like, oh, I just shook hands with a guy that's sick. Let me just take a little hit of that. So I'm not saying do it every time you shake someone's hand, but anytime you're around someone sick, you should wash your hands, soap and water, or a gel or a spray, whatever.
Well, I think another issue there. Another issue too is something that you just said, and I think that it's extremely important. Is we said this over and over on the show: be proactive, but also be proactive to your individual needs. I recognize I have a heart condition, so even though I have a nitroglycerin pill with me, I carry water with me, and then I have my medical card saying where my stents are and things like that. Of knowing that and knowing that, of looking at your individual, and I can't tell you how many times I've been around people that have said stuff to me like, "Oh wow, I got to be careful because I'm violently, I'm violently allergic to that, and I have to take Benadryl immediately." Or I go, "Do you carry that up?" No. Do you have any weight? No. And you go, well, if you are, well, I just, I just do that. I take that chance, and I always tell people, I say, you're taking a chance. Why not have that with you? And then you are in a position that you've got an ability there to take care of yourself if you need to. And I can tell you something, and I can tell you right now that it is definitely one of those situations with this kind of stuff that if you are not careful, you're going to find yourself in a position, which a lot of people do, where you're going to need it and it's not going to be there, or it's going to be out of reach.
I think you find the balance. You don't want to teach your children or teach each other that for every ill you take a pill. However, when, for instance, you're going to the beach, you want to make sure you have some Benadryl, something for sunburn, some Tylenol, something for an upset stomach. The old Pepto-Bismol commercial for nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, upset stomach, So that kind of thing to be prepared for, I think, is a very judicious thing to do. And I don't think it goes too far to encourage you just to take a pill for everything. So that kind of preparation is pretty smart. And, we've talked about on the show before, like a first aid kit that we should all have, just Band-Aids and antiseptics as well.
The checks are pretty
Along with the Tylenol, Benadryl, creams, things like that. I mean, these things can actually be life-saving to some extent.
While we're on that topic for just a second, since we're in the summer, and this is what some summer issues that I was bringing up on that. How dangerous? Let's just get this out in front from a doctor.
All right.
Okay. All right. We got a lot of people. It's the summer. A lot of people are out there. They're going out there to the beach, and I'm seeing them sunburned, red, everything like that. How dangerous is it to be in the sun? I mean, is it? People talk about skin cancer, this kind of thing like that. And I've always thought, if you really think about it, people go out and they take these oily lotions and they put on, they cook themselves on that. Tell us about that.
Yes, it's horrible for you. However, we need sun. Every human being needs sunshine, 10, 15 minutes every day. Not your whole body, but parts of your body, larger parts of your body, arms, legs, neck, head, exposed to sun, absorbing UV rays for about 10 or 15 minutes. Now, if you've had melanoma once already, the guidelines are probably a little different. But the average person needs that to process the vitamin D in their skin. It activates the vitamin D to have. So that's part of healthy living. Now, and of course, the extreme that you're talking about, laying out in the sun for an hour and getting burnt, is a very unhealthy thing to do
And there's a lot of people that do that.
for numerous reasons.
You know, and I mean, you hear about, and you know, and then another one that I had to learn the hard way as a youth. Maybe you can explain this a little bit better. The medical side of this is that you don't have to be in direct sunlight to get burned. You know, that I found that these UV light rays. I've actually sat underneath. I thought I was when I was about 13 or 14. I thought I'd be very clever, and I got one of those little cabana things and was completely covered, and there with in quote in shade, and was sitting there and had in a chair with my legs up in the air on there, but not in the sun. And I got back and was just fried. And I thought, well, how did that have happened?
Right. When you're on the beach, a couple things happen. The water reflects the light in every direction. But also, just when it hits the ground, the radiation can hit the ground and go off in different directions and hit you. And that's all it is. It's like infrared radiation that is with the heat from the sun, and that's how it cooks your skin.
Okay, so, and then I guess then the next question I have is, with that, we have people going out, and I don't know, is it, and I'll you know where I'm going with this in a second. Is this a scam? Is this just something to get you pay more money? But why is it that when you go to just like anything else in America, you go to these, the suntan, burn prevention, whatever you would call it, lotion section, they have all these levels that are, at level 20 all the way up to level 50, 100, 150 like that. Is that a scam, or is that something that people genuinely need?
You need, obviously some people have to be out in the sun longer than the recommended, 10 or 15 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
So if you have to be out in the sun longer than that and you can't avoid it, the first thing to do is wear protective clothing. The second best thing is to put on some kind of a protective sunscreen or lotion. And yes, you need it. If your skin is exposed and you're going to be out more than 10 or 15 minutes, you need it.
And is it the truth? I don't know. Is it at all? Why is it true that you need to wear light colored clothing instead of dark colored clothing?
Correct. Because light clothes reflect the sun. Darker clothes absorb.
Okay, so let's for everybody out there not to be rude or mean, but if you go out there and you're wearing a black shirt with black shorts on that, that's not good.
It's more you're going to get hotter.
You're asking for it on that versus if you wear a white shirt and white.
But as far as if you can get ones, what they're saying now is if it contains like zinc or titanium in it and it's broad spectrum, that's the one to go for. And as long as it's at least 15 to 30, this like number 80 and stuff. I mean, yeah, if you can afford it, go for it. But as long as you got a good number 15 or 30, and it has zinc or titanium, and it says broad spectrum. So any of them that has that criteria is the one to go with.
And again, there's a lot of people. You've got to use a little bit of common sense. The last time I was down on the Gulf, which was Gulf Shores, Alabama, which is the panhandle there, that I was noticing that the hotels on the beach, that the sand was so hot that they had areas where they had sprinklers that would keep the sand wet for a little pass because and I would see people walking across this, literally, you think it looks kind of funny going out, like walking across hot coals. And one of the guys I was talking to down there, he said that there are places that this sand, which is silicon on there, is 175 degrees. It literally frying your feet.
Yes, you will. You can get an early burn. Yep.
On that.
Yep.
Now, I don't know, what your knowledge base is in this area, but I'm just curious on that because you hear a lot of this. Because I have 3 sets of different families down in Florida and Alabama on vacation right now.
Mm-hmm.
Are you familiar with this red tide and stuff like that? On that, what's that all
Yes,
about?
red tide is. I can't speak as an expert about it. I do remember reading about it. I believe it's a fungi or mold that forms in the water under certain conditions when it's a certain warmth and there's certain nutrients in there, and it's a type of it's a mold or a fungus that grows in there. Then when the high winds blow over the water towards the beach, then the people who are along the beach line can then breathe in some of these mold spores and fungi, whichever one it is. I'd have to probably Google it and find out red tide. But that's what it is. It's a mold or a fungus, grows in the water, then the wind whips it up, and then people can breathe it in, and you can notice it. If you have respiratory problems, if you have COPD or asthma or allergies, well, those folks will notice it right away. Other folks, even if they have no respiratory problems, can notice it after a couple days being down there, or one day in particular if it's windy and the conditions are right. But that's that red tide. Yes.
But you hear a lot about that, and of course, then of course you've got your biologics and stuff in the water. Also, I'll tell you, it's interesting. I was watching last night that I don't know if you've seen this in the ER or such as that, but people talk about sharks and stuff like that. There's a lot more people that get jellyfish and Portuguese man of war stings on that, and I have personally had that.
Yeah, that's more common than that.
And wow, does that hurt? And it's amazing. You see this tiny little stringy thing, and it just barely just kind of floats across your skin, and then you feel like somebody just shot you, with a spear gun, wherever it hit.
I don't know what the toxin is, but it rapidly gets absorbed into the skin and break down the skin.
And it is absolutely amazing. Okay, again, so also people that are going to be going on, I guess it's a kind of a no-brainer, but let's just say it anyway, that they're going to also have to go out there. I'm assuming that being out on the beach, spending a lot of time, they're going to have to increase their hydration.
Dehydration is also huge. That's right. The way to gauge hydration is very easy. If you're not taking any bathroom breaks, passing your water, urinating, then you're dehydrated. If you got to run to the restroom maybe 2 or 3 times a day when you're on the beach, then you're drinking enough. That's the way to figure it out. Is
this an old wise or is this true? I was always told growing up that the dark urine, it means you're dehydrated.
Correct, because it's concentrated, right? Your body reabsorbs water as it needs it.
So as you see, if your urine is very clear, that's good.
Yes.
Almost looks like water.
Yes. For the most part, that's a sign that you're hydrated, right? And you can get dehydrated. You can get 10% dehydrated in a couple hours just from sweating and not drinking and eating.
On that. And of course, again, to emphasize something, I guess there's a whole whole additional set of concerns for the very young and the elderly.
Yeah, the very young and the very old are always more vulnerable, whether it's an infection or an environmental factor, too hot, too cold, not enough food, not enough water, viruses, bacteria. The child 2 years and younger, or the elderly, which, I throw it around 80 about this day. I don't consider someone old until they're 80. So over 80 and under age 2 are some reasonable numbers that you can stay out of trouble.
I'm trying to throw some things that I don't know if they're all wise or another one that I've heard is that if you're very, very hot, don't jump in a cold pool. A lot of people get very, very hot, and I've heard that can shock you or put you in a. So is there any truth to that?
Yeah, I mean, in general, you don't want to do that, but no, I mean, if someone has a fever of 105, and they're coming in the emergency room, they're worried about fever, they're going to put an ice bath. They're going to put them in an ice bath. So I would say in general that's probably not true. But if you could start off with cool water and then go into colder water, that would probably be better to do it gradually.
I have an interesting question on that one. Because I know this isn't just me. I remember, I'm sure you've heard the phrase, "Wow, it's so cold it took my breath away."
Mm-hmm.
On that.
Mm-hmm.
What happens with that? Well, because I remember it is. I'll tell you because I want to tell you a quick story about this to illustrate this. Is that I was doing a charity event at my alma mater, Pacelli High School, many years ago, and we had one of the teachers. I'm going to interrupt that for a second. I want to say a special word about that. I'm sorry, I just thought of something. To all our listeners out there, very sad for me this last week. I heard the passing of Lonnie Arrington.
I saw that.
Coach Arrington. I loved Lonnie Arrington. He was my teacher when I was from a freshman in high school all the way through all 4 years. I knew him after high school as a friend and as a colleague and worked for him. Lonnie graduated from Pacelli the year I was born in 1962. and was a true Viking, and was just a fabulous man that was, a lot of people will remember him for his coaching. I remember he was a psychologist by training, psychology and sociologist, and he is the one that got me interested in that. He's the one that got me, that would talk with us, and I always looked forward to his classes, and wonderful family, old family here in Columbus and stuff, but God bless you, Lonnie Arrington, Coach Arrington, in heaven now, and wonderful man, and Coach, you know what, you left a legacy, I think 39 years, I think, actually, at Pacelli, of literally thousands and thousands of students that will always remember you and what you did for them. So God bless you, and please be with your family. But getting back to, I was doing a charity event, and we were doing this wrestling match, and it was supposed to be a Jello wrestling. It was me and one of this other teacher, and we were supposed to, it was staged, kind of thing like that. Yeah. But they had, another one, God bless him, Nathan Rustin, who's gone past too, was Nathan Rustin had set it up, and we had one of those giant plastic pools.
Right.
And I don't know how long it took them or how they did it, but there was about a foot of Jello, in there, and they had obviously kept it cooling overnight. And let me tell you something, we both stepped into that Jello. And it was just like ice, and both of us were going, and I remember just and almost not being able to function. And then I remember another time when I was in the military, very similar thing, is that we were out doing some field training, and we were very hot. And we had to hit this water obstacle, and it was the water was very chilly because it was up in the mountains, and the water was probably in the, I don't know, 40s or 50s on that, and it almost, I almost couldn't function for a second or two. What's happening to your body when that happens?
Two things. Number one, of course, our body functions optimally at 98.6 degrees. In fact, a low-grade fever, your body operates even better, like 99 degrees, 100 degrees. It's actually more efficient. So if you rapidly cool the body down, right, you slow it down and make it more efficient, number one. Number two, if you're warm, the skin is just loaded with sensory nerves. And if you all of a sudden, literally shock those nerves with, one extreme to another, whether it's a painful stimulus, a hot stimulus, a cold stimulus, it can, it gets processed, like we learned about when you put your finger on the burner. Yep. It gets to the spinal cord and up to the brain, and it causes a physical reaction in your body. So when you have that kind of contrast, you jump into ice water, your body has a reaction to it. And one of it would be, to maybe hold your breath or grasp your breath, either as a reflex or as a triggering of a nervous reflex within your central nervous system.
Okay, all right. Now getting back to do's and don'ts. This is I'm calling this Wives' Tales Day for the summer. I remember growing up, don't eat 30 minutes. If you eat, you can't go in the water for 30 minutes. And then, in 30 minutes after you eat, can't go in the pool with it. Wives' Tale, true, false?
I think there's some truth to that, but I don't think there's any real harm done. When you eat, and this is
my mom would watch her watch.
When you get tired.
I mean, like 28 minutes was not good enough. No, there's 2 more minutes. Why can't I make it? 2 more minutes, young man.
I think the fear is this. You ate a meal, right? And we know after we eat a meal, a lot of our blood flow and oxygen demands divert to the gut. Not unlike if you were at the gym working out, your biceps get more blood flow and oxygen, because that's the muscle you're working at the time. Well, the gut's no different. When you're eating, you're working the gut. The body diverts some flow to the gut. And I think the wives' tale must be that you're at increased risk of drowning because your body can't function after you eat. Now, whether there's any truth to that, I don't know. But there is some truth to the fact that, right, some of your blood flow is diverted. You're not at your best physically if you did get into a distressful situation. But, as far as playing in the pool, I'm not aware that anybody ever had an adverse outcome by swimming after they ate.
I just remembered Saturday, my son, who has my second oldest son, who's a recent father. has a 7-month-old, asked me a question, and I just remembered because I should have written it down, but now I remember it. He said, when you see Dr. Clark ask him this question, he wanted to know how is it that a baby, even though they have an umbilical cord, when they're in a mother's womb, they're in amniotic fluid, why do they not drown in that fluid?
Right. Well, because they're breathing liquid.
Interesting.
Now they get oxygen from the umbilical cord.
Yeah.
They're getting their oxygen from there, but the lungs are completely. They're swallowing water. They're breathing amniotic fluid. They're swallowing it. They're breathing it. They're actually urinating it too when they're in the womb. The kidneys are functioning, and at a certain point, their excretory organs start to function. Now they don't have a bowel movement in the womb. If they do, that can be a problem. But they're urinating in there, and there's just this flow of fluid, and it's not until they come out and take a breath. But during that time, the lungs don't have, they're not doing a lot of oxygenating at that time in there, but they are fluid filled. And there's some research of liquid oxygen, helium and oxygen mixtures, or some kind of liquid oxygen that might someday be a useful therapeutic device in preemies and things like that, because their lungs need more time to mature, and they mature in that water environment, the amniotic fluid environment.
And that is absolutely fascinating to me. So really, I guess what we're saying is that we breathed liquid before we breathed oxygen. We started. That was actually a natural state at one time. Having liquid coming in and out of our lungs, and it's not now.
Right. Now, I don't know, and I'll have to double check. Embryology is the area of study, whether they're passively filled with lungs, but just as you're moving around, there is, amniotic fluid kind of going in and out of the lungs. Your body's reabsorbing it from the inside, again, getting into the bloodstream. But as far as it going like in and out, like with each breath, it doesn't quite do that just yet. But it's amazing the transformation. Just from 2 minutes before you're born to 1 minute after you're born, the changes your body goes under. It's fascinating.
Well, it's interesting. The reason I say that is I remember watching. I can't think of the name of it. The Abyss. Abyss. And in that, they were breathing liquid oxygen.
Yes.
And they said, and I remember they said, like, don't worry, your body breathed liquid before it breathed oxygen. And I wonder.
Good point.
I wonder if there is some scientific basis for that.
Yes. Yeah. And there's research in that right now. We're still not there, and there may be some places doing it. But that's kind of cutting edge stuff.
That's very interesting. I think that is. That's again. Okay, getting back to another one on that I guess wives' tales, or whether true or fact on that for your summer safety. Of course, one of the other ones that we hear all the time because people are out is that you have to be cognizant of creepy crawlers, bugs that and the things that and apparently people and I'll let you kind of expound on this.
Mm-hmm.
People from person to person has just dramatically different reactions to bug bites. Some it's nothing for some reason, and some it's a huge problem.
Yeah, they get a huge little welt on there,
Yeah.
or urticaria, and it depends on your skin type and the immune reaction. Most of those are the red bumps that you get from insect bites are usually not infectious. It's a little inflammatory reaction, and you cool it down, and you put some steroid cream on it, like hydrocortisone. I always like ointments. I always favor ointments for the skin. They penetrate better and they protect. So just general first aid. Anytime there's an insult to the skin, even a tiny bug bite, just general first aid. Keep it clean. If it looks like it's getting infected, fine. Put a little ointment on there. If it's red and itchy, put something on it. That's fine. And just vigilance to it. But you do want to avoid mosquito bites. Mosquitoes.
Talk about that for just a second. I've got to plug my phone power in here.
Okay.
We'll
Don't run out of power now.
all right. Doc's going to talk about what happened with the Zika thing. We still got that going on?
Yes, I just got a report from the CDC. There was about like 100 cases that they've looked at that happened in the U.S., so we're prepared for it. But in general, we just know a lot of bad things can come from mosquito bites, and we always do what we can protect ourselves from mosquito bites. Of course, we know DEET, the DEET one. You'll hear some bad things about it, but it's been proven safe in pregnancy. So it's okay to use in pregnancy, but we're prepared to deal with Zika and viruses if they come, but the prevention being the main thing. Use your citronella, use your off spray, have your DEET. So mosquitoes are always a problem, and Zika is just one of the many problems that can happen from mosquito bites. And worldwide, it's a huge thing. So any kind of a bug bite, the skin should be looked at. If it's something that is self-limiting and seems contained and going away on its own, just use your general first aid for. If it's something that becomes worse or spreading or hotter or redder, then you want a physician to take a look at that, either at urgent care. And another good thing is take a picture of it. I mean, we take pictures of everything with our phones nowadays. Any kind of cut, scratch, or something you're worried about, take a picture of it. And then the next day, if he says that better or worse, and how can you tell for sure? Look at the picture you took the day before. So I'm a big fan of people taking pictures of anything medical that they think could be helpful if they ever end up going to the doctor. And if it gets better on its own, then delete the picture. So that covers the bugs, and of course, snakes. Less of a problem, but always an issue. In the summer, it's more bugs and flies and mosquitoes and things like that.
What is it? I can't. I'm trying to remember here in my mind right now. What is the lotion that people like so much?
Calamine lotion.
No. There's soft and.
Oh, Skin So Soft.
Skin So Soft. That's a biggie too. That's supposed to be very anti-mosquito.
Yes.
And it makes you smell nice.
It came from Avon.
Yes.
Because my mom was an Avon lady.
Yeah. I've definitely heard that one.
And I believe off the OFF, I think they've incorporated that whatever's in Skin So Soft into some of their things.
But I grew up with a DEET. That was always the DEET. I always look for the D.
Yeah, that's an abbreviation for a long chemical name. I don't know.
Yeah, I used to I remember very much in Scouts before I'd go out on a trip. My mom would do the thing where I'd put my hand to her face and she'd just spray me down. Boy, I thought.
Well, Lyme disease.
Ticks. I said actually, ticks, another nasty thing we have here.
Always a problem. Check your dog. Dogs get ticks like crazy. A lot of people know. And remove them as soon as you can.
And I'll tell you, again, from a lot of experience in scouting growing up, one place you'll get ticks and you would never suspect it is they're very smart. What they do is they will cluster a whole group of them on leaves, hanging leaves, that low hanging leaves on a limb. And when you go by there and brush by that, every one of them will drop on you. That's what they're doing. They do that on game trails, and I've literally had that happen where all of a sudden I felt something and I felt like 6 or 7 of them on me, my neck, and so you really have to check that, and check yourself, and obviously they're going to go. One thing I always used to do too is I would really spray my shoes or boots and then the bottoms around my ankles. And stuff like that. I'll kind of chime in a little bit on the snakes that is on that. Is I can tell you that I've had a lot of experience with snakes, not snake bites, but with snakes themselves. And I can tell you that we have, I think we have 5 species in Georgia. I believe it's 5 of poisonous snakes. We have rattlesnake. We have the water moccasin or cottonmouth. We have the copperhead. We have the coral snake, and then we have we have the timber and the diamondback rattler. That's right. And then we also have in parts of the state the pygmy rattler. Those are all poison snakes that are very, very obvious. I can tell you, I grew up fascinated. I never liked them. I never had ones. I never had them as pets. People say they are fascinated. I never had them on that. But I can tell you, I know quite a bit about poison snakes in Georgia. Generally, rattlesnakes, which we call them canebrake, which they have kind of a gold stripe on their back. Other people call them timber rattlers. The rattlesnakes will go out of their way to leave you alone. They do not. They know that you're too big to eat on that, and they use their venom to hunt with, and in the end to protect themselves.
They don't want to waste it on you.
And they don't want to waste it. And so they are going. I have actually seen this proven. I've done it myself. I have stood within half a foot of a coiled rattlesnake that was with its rattler on, and as long as I stood there or moved, he did not strike at me. I had snake chaps on, but I did this as a presentation to do that, and he would not strike. And I walked around him. He was mad, but he would not. And I was wearing snake chaps, and this was under a controlled testing environment. He did not strike me, which I was protecting. I can tell you, it feels very weird when they strike you because. And sorry about that.
But again, take a picture if you see the snake and get bit.
Yeah.
If someone can take a picture,
exactly.
If not, just get help right away.
99% of the time, if you get bit by a snake, a poisonous snake, you stepped on him or inadvertently kicked him or hit him on that. The only this is Joe's opinion, okay, but it's come from a lot of years out there. The coral snake, which remember looks just like a king snake, but remember the old saying, Boy Scouts, red meets yellow, you're a dead fella. Because a coral snake and a king snake both have black, red, and yellow stripes on them. But a coral snake has where the red and the yellow lines come together. A king snake has red, black, red. So there's two ways to tell. And they also have a black nose. So they say, nose is black, get back. That means it's poisonous. Or red meets yellow, you're a dead fella. But very, very rare snake bites with a coral snake because, number one, they have really teeny tiny fangs. And they have to actually have they have the most potent venom. It's a neurotoxin venom. But it actually has to get in there, it actually has to clamp on, it has to actually kind of chew. And they don't do that. They have very teeny tiny little hypodermic needle, but they're very small. The opposite are the diamondbacks and the timber rattlers have huge fangs. But most of the time, 50% of the time, I think they have what's called dry bite, which means they'll bite you, but they will not. And then they will hit you with the fangs, but they will not inject venom because they don't want to on that. But again, you have to really, and most times, if you're out in the woods, a little tip for you is they're very smart because one way they hunt is if you're on a game trail or a trail, if you see a log or something that's across the road, always look on the other side before you step over it. Because what they will typically do is they will lay on the other side coiled, waiting for a rabbit or something to jump over the log, and then they tag it, and then that's their supper. And so a lot of people will step over it and step on them and get bit. But they will stay away from you. Copperheads, I hear all these horrible things about copperheads. Copperheads are very venomous. They're very easy to spot. All these have diamond-shaped type heads, and copperhead has kind of it looks like an hourglass shape. I see them around here. I've seen many around here. I've not seen very many big ones. About the biggest I've ever seen has been about 2 feet long. Again, they're very shy. They're not aggressive. They like to stay away from people on that. But they have a very toxic venom. You want to stay away from them. And generally, like I said, now we do have one aggressive snake, and that is a cottonmouth or water moccasin. They call a water moccasin is called a cottonmouth because if you open up his mouth, it's very white on the inside. It looks like cotton. The cottonmouth is actually a deviation, I guess you call, or not deviation, a member of the cobra family. It's different, and it actually is interesting. It's a member of the cobra family, and well, look on that. My wife, there's somebody at the door. I'm telling her to look on that. Is a member of the cobra family, and what they will do is they are territorial. The others are not, and they will actually chase you. They will come after you, and they also bite multiple times. They're very, very aggressive.
Where do you find those?
You find those
they're water moccasins.
Well, they're called water moccasins, but you'll find those around wet areas. They very rarely go out into the water. They like swampy, wet, moist areas. In other words, rotten out tree trunks underneath underneath houses, underneath where a piece of wood or something. A lot of people get bit where they'll have a pile of wood that's been sitting in the backyard for a long time, and they'll be pulling that up. They like, but they don't like the heat. They like it cool.
So more like swampy.
Swampy. That's where you find a lot. Swampy.
Okay. I don't know if I've ever seen one.
I'll tell you how to tell one in a second. If you go down to the water, they're going to be near the water. Where they
Chattahoochee River?
Oh yeah. There's plenty down there.
Yeah.
Down there, but they'll be in the a little swampy, waterish
Gotcha.
where on that. And I'll tell you something, and I don't mean to be melodramatic, but boy, you'll never forget this. First of all, they will warn you, but they're just like cobra. They will actually get up like a cobra, and they hinge their mouth open, and they go from side to side. They go like they hiss at you. They go and boy, let me tell you, that's them saying, "You better get out of my territory," and stuff. And they're warning you because they're showing their mouth open, and then they'll come 3 or 4 feet like that. They'll actually come up, like kind of charge you a little bit, and at that point, you better withdraw on that because they will come after you, and they will. And what's bad about them is they won't bite you one time; they'll bite you 5 times, and that I guess you're gonna tell them it's just we're not ready.
And then, well, of course, both hospitals, and I imagine the Jack Houston there. The pharmacies do stock snake anti-venom. Usually they just keep it around enough to get the treatment started. When someone comes in with the bite, there's a regimented procedure on like how many vials to give. And some of it depends on how long it's been since you've been bitten and what kind of snake it is. And I don't have any of those things memorized, but there are good protocols. In fact, Georgia, forget if it's Thomaston or Thomasville, one of those hospitals is like the local snake hospital even. And we can call them or call poison control. And we can always order, the pharmacies always can get the rest of the dosages. Because it's very expensive and you don't really keep a lot of it, not every hospital keeps a lot of it lying around because it would expire. So what they do is they keep just enough around to get patient started on it, and then the pharmacy calls and orders, and by the time you need your next couple doses, it'll be on board. The treatment usually lasts anywhere from 12 to 36 hours, again, depending on the severity of your labs, and they check your blood work, like your platelet counts and your bleeding times they look at, and of course just what the wound looks like and if it's infected or not. Because the wound can get infected just like with any kind of an insect bite or other type of animal bite. Infection that comes after. The bite itself sometimes doesn't cause the infection. Sometimes it just breaks down the skin and then an infection is there. And of course with dog bites and human bites, there's bacteria on the teeth that if that penetrates the skin, then there's certain bacteria we know to treat against. So,
have you ever heard... another wives' tale. Have you ever heard that dog saliva can actually, on an open wound, help clean it?
Well, yeah, that's why they lick their wounds, so to speak. So there must be some healing property in the saliva itself, and it's the bite itself. The teeth is where the bacteria stick to. So when the teeth penetrate the skin, you're more likely to get an infection. Versus, just having an open wound and have a dog lick it is not going to cause as much of a problem.
I'm going to show Dr. Clark here. This is a copperhead. You can see how it's almost a diamond.
That one I've seen. I've treated.
On that, you've had
Copperheads are the only ones I've
ever
seen
now
treated.
I'm going to show you a waterbox.
Because during hunting season, we get them in the emergency room.
Well, these are, I'll tell you how you can spot a cottonmouth. They're very, very easy to spot. They're very dark and they're fat. They're fat. They're very fat on the middle. They have absolute spade-shaped head. Spade-shaped head. Maybe we can see if we can get that up where people can see that a little bit. You can go a little bit closer. But if you notice, he's a spade-shaped head. See how they're fat, and they have a very thin, tiny tail, and a very. Let me put that low.
Yeah.
I think a little power thing on that. Yeah, on that, and they have almost an oily look to their skin. It's a blackish. Some of them can be brown. a light brown. But then I'll show you another picture of one that they have. As you saw, the very I'm going to show you. Here's a very good one of the head. And see this is also a color here. See how thick? Show them. You can show them up there. How they have a very thick body, but a very pointy, thin, tiny tail, with a very just absolutely spade-shaped head on that. And I'll see if I can get a picture in here of one with their mouth open on that. See if we can get to
Yikes.
why it's that is a cotton mouth. Let's see. I think I might have a picture here of one with his mouth open. Let's see if we can get.
But you mentioned they have neurologic toxin and hematologic toxin.
Yes.
Usually it's a dual toxin.
Here we go. Here's a good photo here for y'all. If I can get it to bring it up here. Here we go. You can see you can see the white in his mouth, and he's looking up at somebody, and he is going like that. And they will get like a cobra, go from side to side to side, and they are just a really aggressive snake. So they will not play. And they have, like I said, almost an oily looking skin. I'll tell you how aggressive they are. I have actually been in a vehicle. I was out at a Boy Scout summer camp in Thomaston, by the way, interestingly enough, and I was coming home at about 11 o'clock at night, and we have a small lake there that we use for the boys to swim in. And I saw on the road a large water moccasin coming in because they go down there to the edge because they do eat fish. They can bite you underneath the water.
And they swim too, right?
They can swim like a fish, and they can actually bite you underneath the water. And but I saw a very large one coming out of, or actually going towards the lake. So I wanted to, very frankly, I wanted to dispatch him because that's where our kids swim in there. In this lake. So I actually, I ran him over with the car, and I think I got part of like his back end, and I could hear, thank God I didn't open the door, I could hear him striking the door. Bang, 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 where he was trying to strike the door on that. Bang, bang. And I backed up and then, finished the job after that. And I pulled out and I could see venom on the side of my door dripping down, where he was, but they are, and I can tell you from personal experience, that is not a wives' tale. They say, oh, they'll fall in the boat, they'll chase you. They will. That and a coach snake. There is some non-poisonous snakes that do that too. We have a snake in Georgia called a pine snake. It's a long snake. It's not venomous, but you know what they do? They hang from a pine, and if they see a big threat like that, they'll bite you in the face, and it's they have teeth. Yeah, on that. But a couple of those things. But again,
that one's going to be the rarest of the things we've talked about.
Yeah,
that'll be the rarest.
But again, we cannot emphasize enough about the ticks. Scorpions. We have scorpions in Georgia. Those little black scorpions, which I know that from Boy Scout camp. I actually remember being at Boy Scout camp and sleeping in the Adirondacks, which are like a half out, half indoor kind of campsite area. And I remember one morning, on a chilly morning, getting up and when I would make my bed, and I pulled up my sheet that I'd been lying on, and there was about 50 that had gotten underneath me to get warm during the night, and these little black scorpions. Yeah. And I don't know. I don't think they're lethal, but I know I've seen somebody been stung, and it's like their foot would swell up, and again really painful sting on that. Another one we have. Please watch out for our of course our yellow jackets that are a variation of wasp. In Georgia, our yellow jackets, a lot of our yellow jackets live underneath the ground. They have their nest underneath the ground. They come up out of the ground. And a yellow jacket and a wasp also are very aggressive. I have seen wasp and I've seen yellow jackets chase people for dozens of yards. I have seen wasp flying around and cant their wings back and come down like a dive bomber and tag you. And they're unlike a bee, they can sting you over and over again. And matter of fact, I know of. It's been several years, but I know several years ago there was a boy at summer camp that was allergic, and he had been stung so many times by yellow jacket he died. He died anaphylactic
Yeah, it's
shock
happened, and older folks can have heart attacks
on that.
because they could be out cutting the grass and get into an area, that.
Absolutely.
But right, and they have these underground mounds almost, and then that could be a yellow jacket home, and there could be thousands of them in there.
And of course, and then we'll kind of leave it with this is just keeping clean, out there as much as you can is making sure that to realize that sanitary is being sanitary is important.
Well, and then just let me mention, and I think enough people have heard the horror stories about the kid that died because he ate an undercooked hamburger. Went to one of the most famous cases is right. They went on it was a Boy Scout camp or a family camp, and they had raw hamburger, and the kids handled it. Wanted to help dad, and they handed them the hamburgers, and they got raw hamburger juice on their hands, and the one boy ended up dying from the rare E. coli.
And I don't know if it was you that told me about this. It might have been you that told me about this, about another case, and I think this was, I don't think this was locally, but I think it was regionally, about a family that went to a campground and had a grill that had been cleaned very thoroughly, but they put hamburgers on there, and there was parts of the wire brush had been left, and it got in the meat on that, and the person ingested that and had a lot of problems.
I mean, it still should be, if it's cooked enough, though, even that.
It was a piece of wire, though, that got into them. That was what was into their system. I mean, I guess you can pass that, but...
Yeah. But, yeah, there's a number of ways it can happen. So, again, I'm not saying don't do it. Just be hygienic about it. Make sure things are cooked, and make sure you have ways to wash your hands.
I can tell you that. And I think, I'll say it, see if the doc agrees. I was taught I'm an Eagle Scout, as a Boy Scout. I was in the Army. I was taught that one thing about those campground things, as long as you get that fire hot enough, you let that thing burn long enough on there, there ain't anything to live on.
That's right.
That. It may look dusty and charcoaly, but you keep that thing where it gets red hot and white hot and stuff like that. You don't have to worry about any bacteria or disease.
That's right.
On that. And
touche.
It's amazing too. It's the same thing with water. I just absolutely am fascinated when growing up, I saw an engineering unit from Fort Benning come out, and that was a water filtration unit. We were sponsored by an engineering unit, our troop was, and they said, oh, we're going to get y'all showers, and we're also going to get y'all nice fresh water, and here they put these hose down this nasty looking creek, we thought, oh my gosh, I don't want to drink that, and so like that. And after I went through this stuff, it looked like spring water. That it was saying it was just. They said, "Tell you what, I'll give you. I give you a $20 bill. Just takes one bite, a little tiny bit of it, and if it doesn't taste good to you, I'll give you $20." And we went, "What did you put? Some bottled water in here or something like that?" And go, "No, that's actually been filtered." And that's the basic thing. Is you can filter it out, where all the bad stuff is gone. And it's just good old clean drinking water.
Yes, there's ways to do that, right, with iodine and filtration.
That's a lot better than iodine. I remember I remember when I was a young camper, I remember using iodine tablets.
In survival situation.
And what we used to do then, I'll leave you with this, is that the smart people that would be out camping and hiking and doing that kind of stuff like that, you'd have your iodine tablets, but you'd always have to, you'd have a couple emergency packets of Kool-Aid, pre-sweetened Kool-Aid mix. So what you do is you'd sit there, if you had to put that nasty water in there, you put your iodine, you shake it up, you take it off, and you leave it for about 20 minutes. It kills everything, but it tastes horrific. Yeah. But then if you pour the sweetened Kool-Aid mix in there, it goes from horrific It cancels it out to horrific to not real
and
good, but a heck of a lot
better. Before the days of bottled water, now.
Oh yeah.
If you go, you're going to have bottled water and fill your canteen up with that, or just carry the bottles around.
Absolutely. Well, it's about time. I know Dr. Clark
back to work.
It's got to go back to work on the medical hour here. Our range has got to kind of show every Tuesday from 2 to 3. We sure appreciate people for coming on our Facebook Live and on YouTube, and you can check us out. Will be on YouTube, and I got to show Dr. Clark how you can look it up on his phone, so you can check this out. So stay with us. We're going to be closing out here in just about a second here, as soon as Miss Pat. And Miss Pat will come over here and close this out. She's coming over here right now.
Right. Thanks, everybody. Good to be here.
I hope the health of Columbus is good, and I hope your family is well.
I'll mention too, real quick. Don't ignore this if it comes to you. Where is it?
I got that.
Yeah, the water report. Don't ignore it. Look at your water report. It's amazing. The things that are in there and the things that we test for. And I verified we're following the national standards. But just read that report. It's very informative. It shows you what's in your water.
Okay. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Clark. And Ms. Pat, if you could take us out, we sure appreciate everybody. Dr. Joe Coley with Chad Paul Voorhees, Pat Coley, Dr. Curtis Clark, and all the family here at the Ray Joe's Got a Country Show, Facebook Live, YouTube, Periscope, Instagram, and anything else we can get on. We appreciate it. Have a great day. Have a great week. God bless you, and God bless America. Be safe. See you soon. Ms. Pat, take us out.